I'm turning 43 soon, and I've been thinking a lot about how many times in my life I have had to start over from new countries, new states, new careers, new identities, new versions of myself. And I did it all that not because I was fearless. I did it because I was full of fear. Every major change in my life came with anxiety, uncertainty, instability, and a desire, like a strong desire to stay where I was, even though it was not working for me anymore. So this video is not about success, it's about moving forward anyway, even if you're full of fear. I would say the first major change in my life started in 2007 when I decided to move out from Bangkok, Thailand to study master degrees in Auckland, New Zealand. That was the first time in my life that I had to live on my own without anyone nearby, right? Because, I was living on my own in Bangkok, but I always had friends or family members or whoever else that I could go to. So it was really hard at the beginning because of the, adjustment to the new country, new language, new everything. But it's not too bad in the first year or two because I was just a student. I had one thing to do, which is finish the study, finish the degree. But after that, I graduated in 2009. And if you remember, if you're old enough, you would know that at the time we had the major financial crisis, right? And a lot of people lost their jobs, the economy tanked and all that. And so graduated at that time was a terrible time because I couldn't get a job anywhere. I had to compete with people that lost their jobs and they came with lots and lots of experiences in their career. I had zero because I just graduated. And so I struggled for a while being unemployed and all that. And eventually I had a job working as a barista, even though I had master's degrees in chemistry. But like I said, I couldn't get a job anywhere, so it is what it is. I just did it. I worked as a barista for 8 or 9 months, and it was not well paid, but enough to have a roof over my head, to have probably 2 to 3 meals a day. It's good enough. After that, I got a job at the university I graduated from for 6 months, and it was again like a proper job, the first proper job, but it just didn't last long. I was promised a second contract after 6 months, but that fell through. Someone else got it, and so I became unemployed again, and I went into debt because I could not find any other means to support myself. And at the time I was also waiting for permanent residence, so I couldn't get a job like to do work because I don't have work visa. Then I went to a hibernation for many months waiting for something, and that something came, which was a scholarship to do PhD. And at the time I didn't really have a strong desire to do PhD. I knew I wanted to do research, but I was hoping to do research for a job, not to do a degree, But it's either that and the financial stability for 3 years, or keep struggling and don't know, I'm gonna be homeless the next day, the next month, that kind of thing. So I accepted scholarship. I ended up doing it for 5 years. It's supposed to be 4 years, but by the end of the 3rd year or the start of the 4th year, I got myself a full-time job, and this time is the first proper full-time job, right? Like I got to use my degrees and blah blah in this job. And so I had to switch my PhD from full-time to part-time. That's why the last bit of it was double the time than it should have, which is fine. But man, to do full-time work and to write a thesis after work for a year is kind of brutal. I was happy enough with that job because I got to do interesting things and I learned a lot. Just when I thought that, I have 3 degrees, I should know a lot. No, you don't. You still learn a lot from work, from doing the actual work. So that's okay, humble me a little bit, that's fine. Then 6 years later, I felt like it's kind of stagnant. I need something new. I need a new venture. I need to explore other things, that kind of thing. So I moved out from New Zealand to Brisbane, Australia. Why Brisbane? Because me and my partner took a trip to Brisbane for like 5 days, and we absolutely fell in love with the place. And we went back with a promise to ourselves that one day we'll move back to Brisbane. And we did. So we jumped from Auckland to Brisbane, Australia, without anything waiting for us, without accommodation, like a proper rental house, without jobs, just pack up and go, that kind of situation. We landed in Brisbane, and then we came in December, and at the time we didn't really know how Brisbane people were like. So basically they stopped working from probably the second week of December and come back again probably the end of January. So we didn't know. We thought, oh, like by the 5th of January, everyone would be back to work. We could start applying for jobs and all that. Nope, that's not the case. So we applied for jobs for 2 months from December to January. Nobody replied. By early Feb, we started thinking we didn't really get anything back from applying for these jobs in Brisbane. Should we try like other states, right? So we started applying for jobs in Sydney. We were still in Brisbane, and we got the phone call like back in the same day, if not the next morning. And that kept going. So we kind of had the feeling that maybe we have to move to Sydney to start our careers, because we were running low on the savings. And that's actually what happened. So we moved from Brisbane in late Feb to Sydney, and as you remember, by March 2020, what happened? Another major event happened, that the whole world shut down. Thank God my partner already had or secured his first job in Sydney, so he went to work. I was still unemployed and still spending my saving down to the bottom of the bank accounts. So we moved into a rental house by March, and when we shut the door, the whole world just shut down. And thank God we had everything we needed just before that. So imagine my partner went to work every day. I was going out to different shops and places to secure furniture or things we need to furnish the house, right? Because we came with not a lot of furniture, because the shipping across the country was not cheap. So we did a lot of things back in New Zealand, so we had to replace those things when we were in Australia. So like I said, the minute we shut the door, the whole world just shut down. When we got ourselves to Sydney, we stayed there for 2.5 years, and during this time, this is when I changed my jobs. Not change jobs, but change career, like change the direction of my career each time. So again, I had to start over in a new role every time. And it's not easy again. And every time I was full of fear, because like I said, that is the new thing. So when you do something new, you don't really know how to do it. You have a lot to learn. You have a lot to adapt and change yourself or adjust. And so that happened to my career at the time, even though the location now was stable, right? The income was somewhat stable. The location was stable. The relationship always stable, thank God. But the career for me, it was really volatile. Then at some point, like after 2.5 years of living in Sydney, we were looking to buy a house, and so we ended up moving back to Brisbane, because like I said at the beginning, we really wanted to live in Brisbane. So we moved to Brisbane. We rented a house for a year just to kind of suss out which suburb we want to buy a house, because it's going to be a long-term thing. So after a year, we found the house, which is this house that we live in now, and things seems to be the best that it could be, like financial stable, the relationship always stable, like I said. Career, at the time I had a really good job, like the best job I ever had in my life, the best job, the best pay, best company, best everything, That's something, but I'm not gonna say it. Anyway, let's just say after 4 years of staying in that company, I left that job. It was very sad for me, but I resigned. And now I'm starting a new thing again, like career change. Here we go again, right? So now I am running my own business. I just started, this is month number 2, so it's too early to tell where it's going. Why am I telling you all this? I don't want to put a lot of emphasis on my life because it's specific to me. But what I'm trying to tell you is that there's so many changes that happened in my life, and like I said at the beginning, that I did it all not because I was fearless. I did it every time because I was full of fear, but I did it anyway. And even now with the new venture, like, I'm telling you that I just started my business, I am full of fear, like the maximum level compared to before, because now I have the mortgage to pay. Right, I have 2 cats. Before it was just myself and a tiny apartment. It's not a big deal, I could figure it out. This time the stake is higher, and so that's a lot to lose or a lot to fear about. But I'm still doing it with fear. Even making this video, I'm doing it with fear. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm fear of the judgment, the disagreement, or some criticism. People might not like how I look, how I sound, my accents, my mistakes when I speak English because it's not my first language, right? It can be anything. So I'm still doing this video full of fear. The point that I'm trying to make is that you don't stop and wait until the fear has gone away and then you start doing what you want to do. You do it anyway with fear. However, I do have a trick, not a trick, but like a way to reduce the fear, and I hope this will be helpful to someone. So first of all, I set the goal, what you want to do or where you want to be, right? So set the goal, and then you look at where you actually are, or what you have at the moment, right? And then you will see what the gap in between these two, right? This is what you want, this is where you are right now, what you have right now. So this is a gap. Then you identify what are in the gap, right? Like, could it be new skills? Could it be some money to invest? Could it be network? Could it be ideas, actual doing, like making products or whatever? Like, what are in the gap, right? And then you break it down, what in the gap, to make it smaller tasks or more like a roadmap from 1 to 10. Like, these are 10 things you have to do. Make up a number, I'm just making up 10. And then before you decide to do it, so now you have a plan, right? Sounds good. But before you do it, do risk assessment. That means you look into each step. What are the risks? And when you look at the risks, don't just look at what they are, but identify the likelihood of the risk and the severity. For example, there's a chance that you might fall off a cliff, but the likelihood is super low because usually you don't go near the cliff, but the severity is death. So that's something to consider, right? So you look into the likelihood and the severity, because then you can draw the line of where the risk is acceptable and where it is not. So if anything that pops up in your roadmap is tipping over to the unacceptable territory, don't do it. It's too risky, right? But if it's fall under that, don't go ahead just yet. Before you go ahead, you should think about risk mitigation plan. So you identify the risk, you identify the likelihood of the risk, you identify the severity of the risk, and the next thing is you come up with the risk mitigation plan. So even though the likelihood is low, severity is low, but what you could do to prevent that or to lessen that. For example, I'm running a business, right? So financial risk is real, right? Identified where it's not acceptable. That's where I'm not gonna go past that line. And then the likelihood of me going bankrupt is mid-level, right? It's not low. Severity could be catastrophe, right? It's, lose everything. And so I come up with risk mitigation of what I could do to slow it down, to lessen that, or to prevent that from happening. Could be that I at some point would look for a part-time job just to get something coming in, just to rethink about what I'm doing, reach out to certain people, whatever it might be. I'm not gonna tell you the whole plan, but anyway, that's what I do to lessen or to reduce the fear. So let's recap. Move forward with fear anyway. If you wait for the fear to go away, you probably will never ever get to start doing what you want to do. Before you do anything, you should look into risk management. The next thing I want to touch on is that sometimes things can take a long time to see the results. So for example, I'm now living in Australia and I'm about to have Australian citizenship. I remember, this is 2026 by the way, but I remember going back in 2006, I said it out loud to someone because they asked me what your plan is. And my plan at the time, I said I wanted to move to New Zealand to study master's degree. I want to live and work in New Zealand. I want to have permanent residency. I want to eventually have New Zealand citizen. I probably want at some point to move to Australia and live and work in Australia, and the pinnacle of my plan at the time was to have Australian citizenship. Guess what? It's becoming real in 2026, but when I said it was 2006. It has taken 20 years to get here, right? So that's a long time. Or another example is that when I was in the last year of doing bachelor degree, I identified that I really enjoy doing research. So I wanted to have a career doing research in chemistry, right, for a company or organization. I wanted to be a researcher, right? And from the day I said that, it took me another nearly 10 years to actually be a researcher. And when I became a researcher, I said to myself, now I want to research a completely new thing, new technology that I get to patent it. I want to be an inventor, right? So from that point on, it took me another 5 years to eventually had my name on a patent, and I became one of the inventors, right? So these days we expect or we hope to see quick results. Everything has to happen fast because we've been trained to see things fast, the short form clip and all of that, right? But in reality, something that is quite a major thing and is something that you really, really, really want, it could take many years for you to see the result. And so the point is not to give up too easily, especially if it's something that you really, really, really want for yourself, right? Of course, there are times and places that you should rethink about what you want because it's not working. But most of the time, I would say don't give up too easily or don't give up too early. You need to be more patient. And the last point I want to make for this video is that you can't really predict the future because, thinking back when I was 20, I could not predict or imagine my life at the age of 30, right? 20, I was just a kid not knowing left and right. That's true, I'm terrible at direction. But yeah, I kind of knew what I wanted. I kind of knew this is the direction I wanted to go into and all that. But I could not actually envision or predict that my life at the age of 30 will be this and this and this and that. No. So when I was 30, I looked back when I was 20, I'm like, how did I get here? I could not predict this at all. And when I was 30 and then I turned 40, I looked back again 10 years, right? I could not predict my life at the age of 40 when I was 30. I kind of knew where I was going, but not really, right? And now I'm turning 43. So I bet when I turn 50 and I look back when I was 40, I would have been somewhere that me in my 40s could not predict, could not envision, could not imagine that that's where I would be. And so yes, you try to plan it out, you try to execute your plan to the best that you can, but really you cannot predict the future. Sometimes life just is, it is what it is. It takes you where it wants to take you. So I would say be serious enough, but don't be too serious either. And risk mitigation plan is your best friend. Well, I hope this video helps you in some way, and if not, at least, I don't know, I hope you enjoy what I'm talking about. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye!